Don't you love it when you batch a bunch of videos and realize you've got just a little bit of your teleprompter hood in the frame?
Yeah, I got balls, twist I ribs, I got balls, won't you listen to me?
Hello, 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 and welcome to The Author Has Thoughts. I'm the author in question, Gary Ballard, author of 12 self-published novels and novellas and a short story collection. Today, I'm talking about episode 10 of Hiss Whistle Dead, my Kindle Vella series, which will eventually become a novel that is part of the Bridge Chronicles science fiction cyberpunk series. That's a mouthful. Links in the description where to buy the episode, buy more of my books. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be notified of when my next video is, which will tell you that there's a new episode of the Kindle Vella series out. Hit me up on my socials. Instagram's where I'm doing a lot of my photography now. Episode 10. Up until this episode, we've been following Shell's perspective, but I knew that to really tell the story without just having Darren, this character we meet in this episode, narrating it, I was going to need to see the events between Barney and Lillian firsthand, or at least third person anyway. It had to be from Barney's perspective, but I needed to keep in mind that Barney couldn't really be considered a reliable narrator. I was having Darren using Barney's cyber eye recordings, as well as his memories, to display the story to Shell in this kind of generated film way, almost like she's watching a TV show. I knew I needed to do this because I needed to show and don't tell, that, that old chestnut. What both Shell and the reader are seeing is a generative composite of just one particular side of the story. And the one person whose perspective we don't get in this whole thing is Lillian's, because of course we can't. They're dead. And there doesn't exist any way within the universe for that to have been left behind. What happens, happens, but it's going to be a mystery because the only person that could tell us can't, and the people that can tell us have, shall we say, their own problems with perception. When I started writing this chapter, I had a little bit of trouble visualizing how to write it. First off, I'm not a romance writer, but that's kind of what I'm writing essentially for the next couple of episodes, even though it may be kind of a twisted, fucked up romance because both of Barney's significant mental damage and because of the emotional neediness that Lillian portrays. The biggest block in my mind, though, didn't come from I don't want to be a romance writer. It was coming from the position of gender and sexuality. I'll put it out there. I'm a male. My pronouns are he, him. Perfectly fine with that. I am a boring ass cis man. So my thought was, how am I going to write a romance between a biologically male, gender neutral, and a gay man who doesn't consciously know or admit that he's gay? I mean, I can't really relate to any of that, right? But that was the aha moment I had, both from a cis male perspective, but also from the perspective of an author trying to write about characters. I realized that I was trying to see these characters as their labels. Oh, they're gender neutral. I can't imagine what that's like. He's gay. I don't know what that's like. As an author, there are times you're going to want to write certain characters as archetypes, as their labels. But good characters, most of the characters that you write, if you really want them to feel genuine, they can't be that simple. You can't just break them down into labels. It finally occurred to me that these two characters were just people who sort of fell in love, or at least fell in lust and obsession. Maybe it was one side just getting the rocks off, while the other side took it for way more than it was meant to be. But I've been in all those situations in some way or another. Was there a man on the other side of the equation? Well, no. But so what? That just changes the parts. It doesn't change the emotions. I mean, there's obviously going to be things I can't understand, and I might write them a bit awkwardly because I do not have the lived experience of a closeted gay man, or someone who's gender neutral, or someone who's polyamorous. I'm going to have to extrapolate things based on what I think those particular things would mean. But if I'm going to write authentic characters that just really feel authentic, I have to first and foremost think of them as people. They'll have the same aspirations and needs that I have. I realize that's going to sound probably a bit like a no shit Sherlock moment for LGBTQ people, and yeah, it really should be. But unfortunately, people still get it twisted. They still think of LGBTQ people as other. You know, even though they've existed among us and, you know, throughout all of human history. And looking back, I don't think in all my years of writing I've ever written an openly LGBTQ plus person. So while, yes, it shouldn't have been anything I thought twice about, it was, and I'm glad that it was, because it made me have to think outside of myself for a minute and examine my own views on gender and sexuality. I've said it in this series of videos before. I grew up in the 80s, and among, you know, my guy peers, you couldn't even admit you masturbated without getting insulted and being called gay, being labeled gay, which was about the worst insult that one dude could throw on another dude. That sort of shit affects you whether you know it or not. It puts this pressure on boys and on men to portray outwardly the worst kind of misogynistic asshole, to be homophobic, if only to prove that you're definitely totally straight. You know, even for someone like me who realized in my 20s that there was nothing wrong with being gay, and again, it shouldn't have taken me that long to come to that realization, but I didn't really have a lot of exposure to gay people, you know, outwardly, openly gay people in my community. I still have to struggle internally against the little peer pressure induced fear that I'm going to do or say something that might mark me as gay because I couldn't possibly be gay. Like there's anything wrong with that. Writing this novel helped me realize that the best response I can give is, so what? Sexuality is not a binary choice. It's not a three-sided triangle. And it isn't remotely tied to my biological gender or the societal gender construct that I identify as. There's a very wide continuum of both sexuality and gender identification. As long as all the parties involved are adults and they're consenting, in what way does anyone have any right to tell someone else how they should get their rocks off? Or even more, how they're supposed to dress to fit within a specific biological classification? Look, life is hard enough without having to be something you're not. To all those people out there that have issues with LGBTQ and whatever, stop poking your nose in other people's business. Love who you want to love and let people love who they want to love. Life's too short for this bullshit. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Come back next week for episode 11. We're starting to get into that home stretch now. Like the video, dislike the video, put some comments down there, subscribe and hit the notification bell to make sure you get more videos. Hit me up on my socials, Instagram especially is where I've been doing a lot of my photography. My name is Gary Ballard, and these have been my thoughts.
1, 2, 3, 4.